A very good evening to you and welcome to RTV News with me, Fiona Mbabazi. The First Lady of Rwanda, Her Excellency Jeannette Kagame, has urged leaders in the country and all Rwandans in general not to tolerate ideologies meant to destroy Rwanda's unity and what Rwandans have managed to achieve. The First Lady made the call at Unity Club in Rwanda. Members held their annual retreat here in Kigali.
The founder and chairperson of Unity Club in Rwanda took the occasion to welcome 23 new members and also explain to them how the club came to be. We started our organization as a group of women brought together by the fact that our spouses were in different leadership positions. We wanted to work with a unity government that had been born in an atmosphere of bitterness, that struggled against the repercussions of genocide, self-doubt and a lack of trust. One must wonder where we would be today had things continued that way. We were determined to strive for unity, and especially after we had seen that when divisionism and suspicion are given priority by leaders, serious and long-term consequences result. Other officials present also reflected on how far the club has come. I remember, Your Excellency First Lady, when we were sitting here, I believe in 1995, as you yourself started dialogue on unity and reconciliation. There were people from back then. I even remember ex-FAR members sitting in this place we now sit. We could not even understand what we were saying. But the dialogue continued nevertheless, and what Rwanda has now attained raises one's curiosity. The foundation of our development here in Rwanda is unity, which is why that is what is first targeted when people try to destroy what has been achieved. Thank you for teaching us about unity. On her part, Her Excellency Jeannette Kagame urged leaders in the country and all Rwandans in general not to tolerate ideologies meant to destroy Rwanda's unity and what Rwandans have managed to achieve. We accepted to undertake this difficult journey as one, and we have seen that we gain the most when we are united. We should therefore never tolerate ideologies meant to destroy the Rwandan identity and what we have achieved. A Unity Club member should put Rwandans first, fulfilling their responsibilities properly so as to help Rwandans develop as individuals, a family unit, and the country in general, so that no one's rights are violated, because that may result in the very Rwandans we are guiding feeling held back. That must be avoided at all cost. As Rwandans, we Unity Club members believe that catering to the needs of our country with a united front is the bridge that will take us across the threshold, overcoming divisionism and backward thinking. All speakers at the retreat agreed on the importance of unity as the foundation of development. Unity Club in Rwanda is comprised of both current and former government officials as well as their spouses.
The Rwanda Biomedical Center today handed over brand new vehicles to 16 district hospitals. Sam Kalisa with the details.
The trucks handed over today were purchased in partnership with Gavi to support vaccination programs across the country. This Friday, President Paul Kagame had a call with Dr. Seth Buckley, the CEO of Gavi, the Vaccination Alliance. This was announced via his Twitter handle. The recipients of the vehicles say this was a much relief needed to them, especially in giving better services. We at Byumba Hospitals have 26 dispensaries, and we have to follow up closely the health of babies and their mothers with vaccines. This will help us a lot in Bugesera district. As you know, this is a very hilly place, and this is a brand new car, and very able to achieve this. The Director General of RBC, Dr. Sabensa Zimana, said the vehicles will not only help in reducing child mortality, but also help get the vaccines to the people.
Birafasha bituma service yihuta ikagera kuri aba babyeyi n'abana.
This will help a lot the mothers and children in getting the vaccines and reduce the infant mortality rates. We are also waiting for the COVID-19 vaccines next year, and this will help a lot. The vehicles were bought at a whopping 1.55 billion Rwandan francs.
One UN Rwanda has called on different partners to consolidate efforts when looking to address problems caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another organization has started an initiative to collect funds to deal with the problems, with the UN pledging 8 of the $20 million required.
During discussions organized by One UN Rwanda, the country was commended for the way it quickly acted to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, though that meant that the measures affected different other sectors, as was the case globally as well.
As you know, Rwanda was witnessing, before COVID-19, a very strong economic growth. Let me, at this juncture, commend the government of Rwanda in its decisive leadership, efforts and measures taken to address both the health crisis and the social and economic impact. The government developed a national COVID-19 preparedness and response plan and put in place measures that have reduced the impact of the pandemic, and we are seeing that our synergies, donors, government, UN have yielded results that we are proud of in Rwanda. The government has also designed an economic recovery plan.
The organization has started an initiative to collect funds to deal with the problems, with the UN pledging 8 of the $20 million required.
In this plan, we have tried to really address the financing gap. It's a $20 million plan, US dollars. We say we already have 8.2 million from our own resources. We are looking for partnership and resource mobilization, 11.8 million. We are sure that together we can do it, because we know that it is the right way to do it. This is the right way to deliver for the vulnerable people. This is the right way to build back better. This is the right way to focus on the NST and the SDGs.
Rwandan health officials have noted that cooperation is required to completely defeat the pandemic and its effects, and they have also thanked all partners engaged in the fight.
This work cannot be a one-man's work. It is a joint effort that can lead to the success against the pandemic, and of course through your support, whatever type, financial, technical, all the type of support we are getting from you is helping us actually to overcome the effects of the pandemic, economically, social, all the aspects of the lives of the population.
The last 5 years had seen the country's economy continue to grow at an average of 7%, with 2019 seeing a slightly more than 9.4% GDP growth. The COVID-19 pandemic has, however, understandably negatively affected the economy during this year of 2020.
Now we bring you a quick update of the coronavirus status in the country. Total cases 5,208 plus 16 new COVID cases recorded today. Recoveries 4,953 plus 13 new recoveries. Active cases 220. Tests that have been conducted so far 566,009 plus 1,333 new tests that were conducted today. Number of deaths recorded today 0. Test positivity rate 1.2%. Now all the 16 that have gotten COVID, or rather tested COVID-19 positive, we have 6 from Kirehe, 6 from Nyagatare, 2 from Rubavu and 2 from Rusizi district, signed Ministry of Health. Now, figures from the Ministry of Trade and Industry indicate that the country's objective is that the industrial sector account for 21% of the GDP by 2024. Now, this is up from the current 18%. Local brewery manufacturers have, in the meantime, commended the progress they have made when it comes to packaging their products.
Local brewery manufacturers have noted that importing things like bottles for their products was proving difficult, and that addressing this issue has been important as locally produced packaging is being turned to, though they say more investment is needed. Officials in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, meanwhile, say a feasibility study is underway for a factory producing such packages to be established.
And among the sustainable solutions that we are looking forward to is having a glass manufacturing company here. But that is still in the preliminary stages. It's not yet. It hasn't reached the fruitful stage. So what we've done now is to allowing those companies, particularly in the meat value chain, be piggery, poultry, fish, to still be using those polythene bags until a sustainable solution is sought.
The quality of local brews is also something that authorities give much importance, which consumers have commended. Officials at the Rwanda Standards Board have emphasized that proper packaging is enforced and any product falling short is dealt with accordingly. The country has up to 100 local brewery companies making 140 different labels. The objective is that the industrial sector account for 21% of GDP by 2024, up from the current 18%.
Farmers and animal feed sellers have been complaining over the increasing cost of such livestock feeds, attributing it to the shortages in things like the maize, which of course is required to manufacture it. Jane Mutoni with more.
A poultry farmer in Masaka sector, Kichukiro district, Kabagambe Jean Bosco, says although majority of people are investing into backyard livestock farming, there has been an unpredictability in the prices of their foods, as he explains the cause of this issue. Concerning the issue of feeding our animals, we still have to buy their food from the market because we don't have the equipment to prepare their foods on our own. Some of them are manufactured in our country, and sometimes they are imported from other countries. Although either way their prices solely depend on their availability on the market, hence prices drastically changing. If only companies that manufacture animal food were to produce at their full potential, because according to what I hear, companies usually produce 50% of their potential. Some of the items used in feeding backyard livestock have drastically increased in price on market recently due to the inadequate supply of mostly maize that takes up to 50% of the necessary ingredient in their foods. On one hand, animal feed sellers say there is a possibility that prices may be narrowed down due to some of the industries that are recently preparing maize that has been in stock. Most of the backyard livestock foods are produced from maize, and now maize prices have increased because it is not yet a harvest season for them. And currently we are facing a problem now that pig farmers are also purchasing maize flour from Azam, while they also have scarcity in wheat because its price has been increased for 3 months now. Likewise, blunder that is produced from maize, its price has increased from 100 Rwandan francs to 170 Rwandan francs. We still have hope because now as students are going back to school, industries manufacture more maize flour, hence prices for blunder may be reduced. On one hand, some farmers have decided to use their own machines to prepare the maize for feeding their animals without having to purchase processed maize. This method works best as they know the adequate amount to mix in the foods with the right measurements. Maize takes up to 50% of the ingredients. Then I add in soya and cotton that acts as protein for them, and bones, because as you can see that machine is also able to squash bones. This is something that one can do on their own, which is a good thing because one's chicken get to eat food that you've prepared with the right amount intended. The National Industry Research and Development Agency says the issue of inadequate amount of maize is caused by farmers not stocking enough for a long-time use and their high demand by people as well, hence having little supply for the animals, as explained by the head of Applied Research and Development and Foresight Incubation Department in Nirba, Dr. Kamana Olivier. The ingredients used in preparing their food is very much similar to what we as people consume, including maize, soya, and many more. You'll find that it's the same to what we consume, hence the consumption is equally the same with animals, almost like a competition. We encourage farmers to bring their projects to us so that we can find ways of supporting them and those that also need laboratories to measure the health of their animal foods. Another group of people we want to support are those that need automation systems. These are technological systems that replace excess human labor expenditures through machines doing the work faster in preparing the animal foods, hence producing excess for the market. According to the statistics by the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources in 2018-2019, the total of chicken increased to 5.4 million from 3.5 million in 2010, whereas the total number of pigs in the same year was 1.3 million, although they had reduced from 1.7 million in 2017-2018. There is still a gap in chicken rearing at a rate of 51.8% and 43.4% in pig farming. According to NIRDA, there is still need of more investments in the animal rearing sector so as to enable them to support more farmers while they contribute to the development of the country. Jane Mutoni, reporting for RTV.
Now move to international matters and straight to the United States, where Democratic candidate Joe Biden has pulled ahead of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, a key state in the U.S. presidential race, which is of course shown by the data. But of course I'm joined by Professor David Monda, who is a lecturer in New York, to help us deduce more on this. Good afternoon, Professor Monda. Thank you very much for making time to be with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Professor, Mr. Biden is leading by more than 13,000 votes, with 98% counted if he takes the state. Will he really win these elections? And where do we stand in the battlefield in terms of states?
So, will he really win this election? We still don't know. However, when you compare Mr. Biden with Mr. Trump, Mr. Biden's path to victory is a lot better than the prospects for Mr. Trump. Simply put, if Donald Trump loses Pennsylvania, then he'll lose this election because there's not enough states for him to win. The challenge to your second question of when we'll exactly know the winner and when will this whole issue be resolved might take a few more days, weeks, or even months. And the reason I say that is because the Trump administration, his campaign is filing a range of lawsuits, some of which have been thrown out of court, but they're filing lawsuits on a range of what they claim are election irregularities. They haven't produced the evidence. Some of the cases have already been thrown out, but this seems to be a strategy for Trump to basically try and see how he's going to keep relevant within this election, because it seems that he's losing this election at this point.
Absolutely. Of course, my next question is going to be the lawsuits. Will they hold water? But of course, you've answered that. But what happens in a scenario that he does not concede and, of course, Biden wins the election?
So, two scenarios here. For one, if Biden wins Pennsylvania, then his current total of 253 will go up to 253 plus 20 will go up to 273. So he'll win the election because he'll have crossed 270. His other scenario is to win Arizona and Nevada, and in that case, Arizona would be 11 electoral votes, and Nevada would be 6. So he'd get to 270 that way. In the event Trump refuses to concede, there's a range of scenarios that would happen. One would be that he'd file lawsuits in court, and depending on how those lawsuits went, if they were all defeated, then Trump would have to concede. Now, whether Trump accepts defeat, which would basically mean the tradition here is that whoever loses the election would call the winner and concede and say, I lost the election. But it doesn't seem Trump would would do that. Then, in effect, Biden would go ahead and act like the president-elect based on the electoral results, and eventually wait to be sworn in. And after the Congress has officially certified the results of the election on January 6th, then we continue the process of swearing in, and Biden will take office, will become the president in that manner. So it's still a long ways. There's still quite a bit to happen, but be ready for a lot more drama in the days to come.
Clearly there's drama ahead, but how would then the U.S. foreign, policy change under Biden? Because I know he has promised to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement that U.S. recently left, but more so for Africa. What does it mean for Africa if Biden wins, especially in terms of the foreign policy?
So I think in terms of foreign policy, the U.S. Generally tends to, under democratic administrations, under Biden administration, would tend to re-engage more with global institutions, regional institutions, and continental institutions. So in Africa's case, you'd expect to see a re-engagement of the Biden administration with, say, the African Union, moving of conflict resolution on the continent through the auspices of the African Union, regionally re-engaging with the East Africa community, with SADC, with ECOWAS, and so on. But also in terms of individual relations with countries, Trump's administration has tended to focus more on bilateral agreements, meaning United States engaging with Rwanda, for example, or U.S. with Kenya, or U.S. with Senegal. But Biden's administration would move more in terms of looking at regional and continental frameworks within which to come up with agreements based on international frameworks and international cooperation. I think the third area is with Biden. Remember, he served on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for many, many years. He's been in the Senate for about half a century, 50 years. So he's very well aware of foreign policy issues. I think the Biden administration would emphasize a lot more issues of human rights, a lot more issues of democratic governance, and a lot more issues of holding to account governments that the U.S. would perceive to be human rights abusing. So expect a lot more of that to come forward. The Trump administration, on its part, usually tended to focus more on militarization of its policy when it came to Africa, focusing more on war against terror and basically securitization of the foreign policy. In other words, arms sales to Africa and essentially making sure that Islamic terrorism is brought down. So Biden, I think, would shift that, focus more on foreign policy, on engagement with international bodies, and on more multilateral cooperation, as opposed to Trump, who was more militaristic, more anti-jihadist, and more in terms of relating with Africa on individual countries, as opposed to a multilateral framework.
Absolutely. Now, the U.S., of course, set a new single-day COVID-19 case record with at least 102,000, right, just by November 4th. The country is averaging to 850 deaths per day. This is up, of course, by 700 just last month. Are we having misplaced priorities right now? Are we letting politics take over at the expense of people dying at this rate?
So that's a bit of a tough question, because you need to get the politics right to fix the COVID problem. Part of the reason almost 250,000 of Americans have died, that's 250,000 people are dead because of the poor policies of the Trump administration. You have to get the elections right so that you can get a new administration which can fix the COVID. So this is part of the reason we have elections. So it's a referendum on the Trump administration. And at this point, the people seem to be saying that he's done a bad job on the economy. He's done a bad job in terms of foreign policy, in terms of the allies of the United States. And he's also done a really bad job around COVID. I lecture at the university, and I must say I've had very personal experiences about this. Some of my students have lost parents. Some of my students have died.
here in New York. So it's a really personal story when students can't turn in assignments because they're sick, because they got infected, or because they got depressed, because a mother or father passed away. So this is a real difficult problem, and hopefully the election's going to address this issue in terms of have the electorate decided to have a new president to deal with the COVID crisis, or will it be more Trump as usual? But as things look right now, it seems we're going to have a new president, and hopefully this situation with COVID will be addressed.
And hopefully in the next 48 hours, do you think we'll probably officially have a line drawn between, Biden and Trump, and, to let go of this anxiety that is growing all over?
So I think we will have a result. We probably know who won the election, at least from the media houses. But I don't think it will be the end of the legal process. That will probably take another month, maybe a month and a half, because Trump is very determined not to let this election go very easy. But I must say, the difference with United States and a lot of other countries, not everybody in the US right now is focused on the election. People have voted. They've gone on with their business, doing their work. I mean, I had a class today. Life goes on. So the country is not paralyzed just because there's an election. People have faith in the system. They know that the votes are being counted, and they know eventually whoever feels there's an issue with the election will appeal in court. And if they're successful, their case will be upheld. If they're unsuccessful, their case will be thrown out. People have moved on with their life. People are continuing with their work, and it's business as usual. So I think the country by and large is calm. The Electoral Commission is giving very regular updates, and that's very important. So issues of these theories and conspiracies that are coming up, those are dispelled. And then everything is very, very much clear. For example, right now in Pennsylvania, even if you go online, you go to the Pennsylvania Electoral Commission, you can actually see live feed of the counting area where they're counting the votes. So things are being done very openly, and I really believe in the process. People believe in the electoral process. They're moving on with their lives, and hopefully, whether it's in 2 days, whether it's in 2 months, we'll eventually come up with a consensus and someone who's been constitutionally elected the 46th president of the United States.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. David Monda, for making time to be with us, and please do keep safe.
Thank you, and thanks for welcoming me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David. And this story, of course, sums up tonight's edition. Thank you very much for joining us. And, of course, like Professor David Monda, who joined us earlier, said, more drama. Let's get ready for more drama. But in between that, God bless, take care, and let's keep safe.